Globally, women hold only 19.7% of board seats, 15.7% of CFO positions, 6.7% of board chair positions, and 5% of CEO positions. Eliminating discrimination against female workers could boost productivity by up to 40%, because equality means business. So far, many stock exchanges have already advanced gender equality and the UN Sustainable Development Goals by promoting access to finance for women and encouraging women to invest in public markets, developing new products such as sustainability-linked bonds with gender criteria, signing and adopting the Women's Empowerment Principles, and promoting gender equality listing criteria and gender data disclosure. Ring the bell for gender equality.
Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie.
Welcome wholeheartedly. The movie of United Nations Global Compact Poland introduced us to today's meeting. Ring the Bell for Gender Equality 2023 is open on this International Women's Day. It's a great event co-created by two outstanding entities, UN Global Compact and Warsaw Stock Exchange. In digital, that means ring the bell for gender equality. In a minute, we will hear the bell ringing to stress the outstanding effort put by all organizations for gender equality. Let me remind you that we will have online broadcast from this event. We will hear the bell not only in Poland, but in more than 100 countries at more than 100 stock exchanges all around the world. Let me start with a keynote speaker, a special guest whom you can see on your left-hand side. She is a fearless girl that was founded by State Street Global Advisors. Kristen Visbal is the author. She has 1 meter and 35 centimeters, and originally she was put next to the New York Stock Exchange in 2017. This sculpture was located the opposite to the bull, which is the symbol of stock exchange. Of course, in a contrast to the male symbol, namely the bull next to New York Stock Exchange, the male symbol of the capital markets. And Fearless Girl was to promote gender equality. Apart from our special guest, we have many other guests who gathered here at this great meeting.
Her Excellency Ambassador of Finland, Päivi. Witam panią. Witamy serdecznie, bo wiem, że pani ambasador pięknie mówi po polsku, także
I know that the ambassador of Finland speaks Polish. Welcome Barbara Socha, plenipotentiary of the Government for Demographic Policy, Undersecretary of State in the Ministry of Family and Social Policy.
Head of State, Street Global Advisors Europe. Welcome, Mr. N. A symboliczne uderzenie w dzwon.
And now let's hear the bell ringing. Izabela Olszewska will ring the bell, and Anna Potocka-Domin from UN Global Compact Network Poland, and Izabela Olszewska, member of the board from the Warsaw Stock Exchange.
Dziękujemy pięknie.
Thank you very much. So, another year of this traditional bell ringing.
A panie poproszę, proszę jeszcze nie zasiadać, bardzo proszę.
Don't take your seats because we'd like you to open this meeting officially on behalf of the entities being hosts of today's meeting. Good morning. Welcome warmly on behalf of the host and owner of this place, the Warsaw Stock Exchange. As it has been said, today on the International Women's Day, On more than 100 capital markets all around the world, this bell rang. All these markets celebrate Ring the Bell for Gender Equality. Let me list our partners. These are renowned international institutions and partners assisting stock exchanges in celebration of this great day. This is United Nations Global Compact. We celebrate together with Global Compact Network in Poland, International Finance Corporation. Thank you for being with us. World Federation of Exchanges, UN Women, and others. It's a great pleasure to open this event here in Poland at the Warsaw Stock Exchange. We want to tell you that this bell wants to attract your attention of all of you staying with us here on site and online. We'd like to make you sensitive to challenges related to gender equality on the job market and in the society as such. Today, we have great celebration because we will have the presentation of the replica of a renowned sculpture of the fearless girl by Kristen Visbal. This sculpture was made upon the request of State Street Global. So she is here with us in her strong position, showing us the spirit of women who are at the helm of large companies, and she inspires other women to follow in their footsteps. For the Warsaw Stock Exchange is a very important inspiration because, as it has been said by our host, this sculpture is located next to the New York Stock Exchange. Our special guest, Anne Prendergast, from the CEO of State Street Global, will tell us something more about her and about larger participation of women on companies' boards. For many years, we've been engaging in promotional and educational activities when it comes to social issues, but this year we are focused on diversity and gender equality. It's a very important part of a vivid trend, namely ESG. And to explain it, it means that investors, while taking their investment decisions, they take into account not only the financial performance of companies, but also they take into account other non-financial aspects. For example, to what extent decisions are made based on ESG criteria, namely E for environment, so S for social matters, and G for governance. And in this S ladder has gender equality as its component. Many times we are asked by future investors about the diversity on boards. Investors are interested by this aspect, and they stress that if a company has a diverse board, their performance is much better. There is also a lot of examples of research published confirming that. The second thing is the gender payment gap. To what extent company is managing this issue, and to what extent they mitigate the gender gap at the same positions and in the same functions, while it is taken by a man and woman at the same time. Women represent 50% of the global population, so companies who don't respect that and don't hire women managers, they neglect this important trend. We need to take into account diversity of the world we're living in and we're working in. For the Warsaw Stock Exchange, every year we analyze the participation of female managers on the boards, and We also carried out such research for the year 2022. Last year, the participation of women on the boards on the regulated markets was 12.8%, and in case of new connect companies, it was 13.6%. When it comes to the supervisory board, this is respectively 18.4 and 20.4. So we can see a lot needs to be done in this respect and a lot of challenges ahead of us. We are aware that in the Polish world of the Polish business and state-owned companies, much is to be done in the context of diversity and gender equality. As a stock exchange, we decided to be the depository of good practices in 2023. Gender equality is an important aspect this year. Our companies are obliged to report in what way and if they tackle the issue of diversity while taking their activities. The topic of diversity is very important because activities have been taken also on the level of the EU legislation, and in October 2022, directive on gender equality in the governing bodies of companies was adopted. That obliges listed companies all around the EU to report by 2026 to report the sex which is not represented on the level of the board of directors. At the level of the board of directors, this index should be 33%, and for non-executive directors, so directors who are not executives, it is minimum 30%. Today's conference is one of important steps, stressing how important diversity and gender equality is. This program will be very important, and it takes into account different aspects of this discussion and different solutions. So, taking into account that women are more frequently present in functions, which was not true a few years ago, we owe it to social transformation, and as each and every process, it needs to take some time. Good news here is, and we are under the impression, and I can say it, that this is a beautiful idea of diversity that is filled up with the content. From the point of view of the Warsaw Stock Exchange and from my own, I would like to wish you fruitful conversations, and to all women, happy, joyful and sunny International Women's Day. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy pani Izabeli Olszewskiej.
Thank you, Madam Izabela Olszewska. I would like to invite to the stage Anna Potocka-Domin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Isa, thank you very much for your wishes and greetings. I have some reflections. It's yet another time I've been ringing the bell on the stock exchange for gender equality. This ring will be heard in over 100 exchanges worldwide. Still, it is not heard sufficiently. After 104 years of first International Women's Day, after the 70 days since first signature of the document confirming the equality between men and women, this is the UN chart, in order to achieve full equality, we still need 132 years. The recent gender gap report proves that Poland, in terms of equality, takes only 36th place in Europe and the 77th place globally. I remember how surprised I was when I first met this over 100 years perspective of expectation of equality. I was really sad and my optimism was really challenged, and today I mainly feels anger, and similarly to a few thousand women who were responding to the recent survey led us to be heard. initiative of 30% Club and United Nations Compact Global Network Poland. I think there is no more time to convince the world how important it is to be equal and that women should be equal in all areas of life. It has been researched thoroughly, it has been described in many documents, it has been agreed at the top levels of government. These are facts. However, they are yet not sufficient to realistically change this shameful disproportions of the presence of women and top management, government, science and culture, so that women and men enjoy the same opportunities. For that, we need to get to action and to be active while fighting against discrimination of women in all spaces, public, social and political ones. Innovations for gender equality, today's Ring the Bell is dedicated to, through the leadership and innovative actions, give us hope for realistic change and to reach the fifth of the UN agenda target, reaching the gender equality by 2030. The International Women's Day is celebrated here at the Warsaw Stock Exchange. There is a reason for that. Business currently is facing much bigger challenges that it had before. It is responsible for cultural, civilizational and social changes also in the area of gender equality. I'm so glad that today we have great experts that are committed to the topic of gender equality. We have with us our special guest, the fearless girl. And as the previous speaker says, she is a symbol of the fight for the proper participation of women in the leadership position. She is encouraging us to get to action. I wish all of us to see these fearless girls in all of us so that our voice can be heard and can be listened to. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jedną z najważniejszych regulacji.
One of the most legal regulation in the European Union for the actions related to gender equality is the Work-Life Balance Directive for Gender Equality. How important it is in Poland, it will be discussed by Barbara Socha, who is plenipotentiary of the government for the demographic politics in Poland. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you cordially. Thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. It's a great honor and a joy to be with you today. We have already heard about women. This is our day today. I look at the room and I see many active entrepreneurial women in Poland. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the European country where the rights of women has always been respected. The UN chart has been already mentioned here. Poles were one of the nations that got the voting rights when the partition of Poland ended, when the independent state of Poland 1918 was established. The Polish women got their rights. And of course, this is not the right place for a lecture on history, but Poles are very strong women. They are very ambitious and they are really entrepreneurial. When we follow the Eurostat statistics, this is the data based on which we can actually compare Poles against women in other countries. So based on this data, we see that Polish women are highly skilled and well educated. There is a great advantage vis-a-vis men. Looking at the data mentioned by Madam President, data that is considered while reporting the ESG standards like gender payment gap and leadership positions. Pay gap, well, here we are much below the European average. The pay gap in Poland is much smaller than it is in the majority of the European states. This is a reason for optimism. However, it is not a reason to rest on laurels. There are many industries, including financial one, when the pay gap is still really significant. And this is the right moment to think about it, to reflect on that, and to think what should be done to be able to bridge this gap. Looking at the participation of women in the leadership managerial positions, I'm not talking the top management, executive position, managerial positions. We are #1 in Europe here. This is the data which is not obvious, but it's really worth mentioning. Poles for over 30 years have done a lot of work. Our professional activities in all age groups, various groups in terms of education, women in Poland reached a lot. Looking at these top positions, we are at the average of Europe. This is exactly the same percentage as we see in European average. So on the one hand side, we see we managed to reach so far already. However, there is still room for improvement, a lot to be done. I would like to thank Madam President and Warsaw Stock Exchange for the collaboration in discovering new aspects related to financial reporting. In December, we ran a survey among the listed companies, and we wanted to see how the social practices look like, practices that could develop, could let us grow this letter S that we see as the pay gap and the participation of women in managerial positions. So we wanted to verify how the employers and companies approach this topic, what conditions they offer to their people when it comes to stability and flexibility of work. We got very interesting results of our survey. Stability of employment, which is the illustrated by the work contracts, unlimited time work contracts. This factor is used in Poland, but not everywhere. Many companies practice different forms of employment, like limited contracts without any justification. And this is one of the factors when we analyze situation of women, because when we talk about gender equality, I personally see this inequality in the forms of employment. It's very clear that men are more often receive the unlimited work contracts, whereas women, specifically younger women in the beginning of their professional career, they do not get it, and that's important to be addressed. I believe Poles today can celebrate many different successes. They can celebrate their development, but they want to talk about future. Aspirations of Poles differ a lot, and we have to bear this in mind. How different we are from other European labor markets. This is the fact that in Poland we still have a small percentage of people, not only women, but people generally, people who can work in more flexible formats. When we talk to our colleagues from Scandinavian countries and other European countries, we can see these differences. In Scandinavian countries, 1/3 of women actively professionally active can work in flexible time schedules, and this help them to combine effectively life and professional and family lives. We do not only work professionally, we want to have families, we want to have hobbies, we want to be able to spend time with our kids. These are all very very important aspects of our lives, and that's really worth to remember. That's why I would like to thank for inviting me to this conference. Thank you for organizing this event. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about women, situation of Polish women, and the way we can improve this situation, so that next year is when we ring the bell for gender equality, we will be able to discuss yet better results. And that's what I would like to wish all of you, and specifically women gathered here. Thank you very much, Madam Minister Barbara Socha. Thank you. Ring the Bell 2023. It is also a topic of gender equality in the perspective of the global population. That's why I would like to invite our honorary guests. Finland has a great and long history in the area of gender equality. Finland was the first country worldwide who offered the full women's right already in 1906. As far as I know, Finland is the only country that is ruled by a woman. That's why I would like to invite Madam Ambassador of Finland to Poland. Madam Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Dzień dobry wszystkim I witam was bardzo serdecznie.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome everybody on this very special occasion. I will try to speak Polish.
Muszę trochę wyciągać, także wybaczcie mi to. Ale chciałbym serdecznie podziękować.
I would like to thank UN Global Compact Network Poland and Warsaw Stock Exchange for inviting me to this very important conference. As far as I know, this is not the first time that Embassy of Finland participates in this very important debate, and I'm so glad to be able to be with you today, ladies and gentlemen. Gender equality is a very important factor for Finland. Finland, a country that was destroyed by war in the beginning of the previous century. This was an important path to reach a happy nation and happy country today. We are a small nation. There was no option to leave half of our population besides the labor market. The gender equality is one of the key political factors of the foreign and domestic policy in Poland. According to the survey of 2022, Finland takes the second place in the world when it comes to gender equality. Already in the beginning of the 20th century, Finland was the first country globally that vested full election rights in women. Women also got the right to be candidates in elections. That was still the moment when Finland belonged to the Russian Empire. Then that was the moment when there were 19 female deputies elected back then. Now we work hard on improvement of status of women and gender equality over years. In the Finnish politics and business, we see the equal participation of men and women. Currently in our parliament we have 47% of women. In the court we have even more women than men.
Bardzo ważnym czynnikiem równości Finlandii.
The very important factor of gender equality in Finland is that all 5 parties represented on our government, all these parties are managed by women. In the municipal councils, we also have 40% of women. We have 50-50 men and women being our diplomats. In business, we have 1/3 entrepreneurs who are women. This is very good result, as I believe. It's not yet very good, but it's relatively high when we compare ourselves against other European countries. Of course, Finland is still striving for improvement of gender equality and faces many problems in this aspect. Here we also have the problem of the pay gap, the differences between men and women here as well. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the most important topic of this event, digitalization, as I believe, could help us to reach a better position in gender equality. The proper use of innovations and technology could be perfect tool to promote gender equality. It is worth to remember, however, that technology development is followed by many threats. Violence online, this is a phenomenon that should be stopped. We have to be fight actively against it. Finland discusses these problems on the European Union and in the UN. Promotion of the safe internet for men and for women and girls. This was one of the top priorities for Freedom Online Coalition in Finland a few years ago. National plan to fight against violence against women includes also the digital aspects. The Finnish Ministry of Health and Social Security developed the training module to recognize and intervene in case of online violence against gender. Finland is a part of 5 years campaign, UN campaign, promoting women and girls' rights and gender equality worldwide. For this campaign, Finland, together with Armenia, Chile, Rwanda, and Armenia, took a leading role promoting innovations and technologies. Finland undertook 9 commitments to decrease digital gap and disproportions in science and education. We invest in inclusive technologies and innovations. We combat violence and discrimination in internet. Finland is focusing on the specific situation of disabled girls and women in the area of gender equality. We involve the gender-based budgeting aspects as well. In 2021, Finland financed the projects of technological cooperation for gender equality worldwide. We invested 17 million euros for that. These financial resources has been used to secure digital safety and security, to respect human rights and to promote digital skills among men and women in the developing countries. To the end, I would like to outline the silhouettes of some leading Finnish women. Anne Stendros and Marjo Nittinen, these are the founders of Women in Tech Finland. There are 40 membership organizations. Every year they organize dozens free of charge training and events. The target of this organization is to encourage and to support girls, women and non-binary persons in their career in technology. Another inspiring Finn is Linda Liukas, the author and illustrator of the kids' book, Hello Ruby book, that illustrates basic areas in technology and programming. Linda Liukas is also a founder of the movement that supports women in programming. We have Finnish head of government, Sandra Malin, who is a great example, the role model in all areas related to gender equality in Finnish society. She comes from rainbow family, and she graduated from the university. As a young woman and mother, she became a prime minister from the Socialist Party. Recently, this party was a party of elderly men in Finland, but as we know, this lady knows how to have fun in life, how to party, and this is also a role modeling for the Finnish women. Let me summarize. Our future is digital future. To cope with that, government, decision makers, and companies will have to cooperate to get ready for this challenge in order to achieve inclusive progress in the societies. It is important to support digital inclusive society where the digital gaps can be recognized and addressed so that the current and future employees can be trained and retrained for the new environment of work. Bridging the gap, combating violence in internet, integrating the gender aspects in technologies, we can increase participation of women, we can face the challenge of stereotypes, and we can help to shape sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak today, and I would like to wish all of you very fruitful debate, and I do hope that gender equality rights will move on. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was the ambassador of Finland and Poland, Päivi Lane. Thank you very much for this inspiring speech. As I've said, the statue that we can observe here, the Fearless Girl, is founded by State Street Global Advisors, one of the largest financial institutions globally. We're happy to host one of the leaders of these institutions, Madam President. The floor is yours. Anne Prendergast.
Good morning. Apologies, I'm going to speak in English, so you're going to have to listen to that for 10 minutes. But thank you very much, the Warsaw Stock Exchange, for inviting me to speak today on what's a really important and necessary date in our diaries, International Women's Day. And the international theme for Women's Day this year is Embrace Equity. And embracing equity is relevant to all of us, whether it's in our work life, in our families, or even within ourselves. But to do it properly, we have a lot of work still to do, and we've heard that here this morning. But it's interesting that thinking about it through the lens of equity is a maturing and an evolution of our conversations around diversity. Because when we started on this journey, it was about including women, whether that was on boards, in senior positions, or in previously male-dominated industries or jobs. And then we looked to achieve mass in those positions by ensuring that it wasn't just one woman, the token gesture, that we supported those women with other women. And there's still work to be done in both of those areas, but to move the conversation on and think about it through the lens of equity will really get us to a place where we can properly embed diversity. But there is a distinction to be made, and we've talked a lot today already about equality, but there is a distinction between equality and equity. And it's said that equality is ensuring that everyone has a pair of shoes, but equity is ensuring that those shoes fit. Because we are different, we are all different. So if we want to fully include people, then we have to recognize and account for those differences, whether that's between men and women or other types of diversity. And some of the practical differences between men and women were described by Carolyn Credo-Prizes in her book, Invisible Women, where she talked about, through technological, scientific, and medical research, they've often taken the form of the male form and perspective, whether that's diagnosing heart attacks. Women demonstrate different symptoms to men and therefore often go undetected. It's in establishing dosages of medicine, determining how high the top shelf should be, producing crash test dummies for cars, programming speech recognition software. I thought it was me that my Google speaker didn't understand, and determining the temperature of offices, which, by the way, are on average 5 degrees too cold for women. But demographically, and we've talked about this as well already, women live longer and are better educated than men in most developed countries. But yet, the average woman in the OECD countries earns 14% less than the average man. This inequality is hampering growth, and it also means that women take on more debt, they have lower pensions, and they're at more risk of poverty, which makes them very vulnerable financially. And for policymakers to address this issue of gender inequality as a priority, we need to look at holistic reforms. And again, we've talked about some of that here this morning. But holistic reforms around education, health, labour, tax, and financial services. And as corporations, we need to think about elevating women through all areas of our organisations, all the way to the top. And we need to continue to put in place programmes and policies that allow that to happen. We don't just want role models. We want representation across businesses, functions, and job roles. And that's going to be really, really important because there is no job and there is no function that the woman is not qualified to do. So we're really pleased in State Street that we can play our part, particularly here in Poland, as we engage with the Mommy Works Foundation, the CFA Society in Poland, in our project called Fearless Together, Empower Your Career in Finance, which is aimed at Ukrainian and Polish women to ensure that we work with them and accelerate their program in financial services. And as has been mentioned, we have the opportunity to do that today, and accompanying us in order to launch that event is this statue of the fearless girl. And you can see this 120 centimetre statue is of a strong and confident girl. And she is emblematic of our policy and our push towards gender equality and leadership in all positions. And in 2017, we placed Fearless Girl in the heart of the financial district in New York. And again, the reason for that was so that she was our public face of our efforts to raise awareness about gender diversity, particularly in senior positions. And she celebrates the spirit of women who are in leadership positions today, and she acts as an inspiration for the next generation of future leaders. And the reason we have focused so much on gender diversity is because there's extensive research to tell us that gender diversity leads to better business outcomes. For example, MSCI found that companies that have greater female leadership on their boards deliver a return on equity which is 36.4% higher than those companies who don't have critical mass of women on their boards. The Global Institute of McKinsey Global Institute noted that there would be an increase of $2.8 trillion in global GDP if women were to participate in the economy in the same way as men. So what those two numbers tell us is that this is not a zero-sum game. Everyone benefits from this. And it does move the discussion on from one about values to value. Other research tells us that it's not just companies that they deliver better performance and business outcomes, but actually they suffer less from bribery, fraud, corruption, or shareholder conflict. And the reason that's attributed to that outperformance is because women tend to be more independent thinkers and therefore are less inclined to cronyism or groupthink. Now, we as a society, and politically and economically, we are facing greater and new challenges every day, whether that's pandemics, wars, inequity, deglobalization. And we do need new thinking, and we do need diversity of thought. And so therefore, we need to incorporate all those various thinkings to move us forward. As fiduciary in SSJ and State Street Global Advisors, we are stewards of our clients' assets. And so we take this issue very seriously, and we see it as our obligation to do something about it. And just to say, State Street Global Advisors is one of the largest investment managers in the world, with just under $4 trillion in assets under management. And our clients are businesses and organizations that represent millions of people globally. And we invest in over 10,000 listed companies on behalf of those clients. And so therefore we are stewards of their assets. And as stewards of those assets, we've developed an active engagement program with the companies in our portfolios to ensure that we are talking to them about environmental, social, and governance issues that ultimately will drive long-term value and sustainability. And one of those key things is diversity, like we talk about today. And yet, although the numbers I spoke about earlier, we found that in 2017, many companies within our portfolios had no women on their board. And so, at the same time as placing Fearless Girl in the financial district in New York, we called on thousands of companies in our portfolios to put a woman on their board. And in doing that, we gave them some guidance so that they could take action, and also provided thought leadership to educate their boards about how they might find pathways to increase diversification across their entire organizations. So what was the success of that? Well, since 2017, we've called on 2,146 companies to place a woman on their board. 1,027, nearly 50% of them have done so. In 2022, we asked and we expected that there was at least one female director in all holdings in all markets. And this year, our expectation is that all companies in major indices around the world would have at least 30% women on their board. And our efforts have been recognized by the economic research of economic studies, and that our efforts, alongside those of other asset managers, have made a difference in this space. And indeed, for US corporations, in 2019, there were 2.5 times more women on boards than there had been in 2016. And indeed, in 2019, it was the first year in history that every company in the S&P 500 had at least one woman on their board. And representation has only increased since then. Now, we are breaking new ground, and everyone here is breaking new ground when we think about gender and gender diversity. But we need to learn as we go, because we are learning about what works, what doesn't work, unintended consequences. But there are certainly a few learnings that I think all of us can think about and again bring forward. One of those is that appointing a woman to our board is really important for all the reasons I've talked about already. But it's not enough. One woman in and of themselves is never enough. She needs support with other women. It is not enough to appoint a woman as director. We need to see women chairs, independent lead directors, and chairs of committees of boards. And we need to ensure that there's diversity throughout all the organizations, but particularly in leadership positions. The broken run theory does exist, i.e. that men are more likely to get that first step on the management hierarchy than women. And so we need to address that. So there's a lot of work we continue to do. But I want to say again, thank you very much for being with you today for the ringing of the bell occasion. It's been really important. It's been an honor for me to share our experiences in the work of Fearless Girl. And also because it's such a big year for us in Poland with the work that we're doing with the Mummies Works Foundation and the CFA Society in Poland. And Fearless Girl is going to be here on our visit, acting as inspiration for diversity and also as an emblem for that work that we're going to take forward with the financial services industry. Finally, in conclusion, I want to say that you should all celebrate today and how you've got to where you are and the fearlessness that's got you there. And I'd ask you to connect with others, engage, and support to bring others on that journey with you. Because fearless girls are made, they're not born. And as New York advocate Letitia James said when she wrote to ask for the retention of Fearless Girl in New York, she wrote in a letter to the city of New York, and she said, Fearless Girl stands as a powerful beacon, supporting women old and young, and acknowledging that no dream is too big and no ceiling is too high. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mrs. Anna, I would like to invite you for an additional symbolic ringing the bell. If you would come ring the bell, please. Thank you very much. Szanowni Państwo, aby
Ladies and gentlemen, to give voice also to male participants, let me invite Kamil Wyszkowski from the UN Global Compact. Please wrap up the first part of today's meeting, because soon we will have a panel discussion. So, for the sake of gender equality, now the floor will be to male participants. Kamil Wyszkowski, you're invited onto the stage.
Szanowni Państwo, bardzo dziękuję za tak liczną obecność.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for your presence. Let me use this opportunity to thank for this great cooperation and coexistence of men and women, but also others, sex and identities. I'm happy that all of them are represented here. I wanted to make the UN voice heard, but also other voices, because we cannot forget about other places where there is no equality, and this equality is being destructed in a very aggressive way. There are many countries in Europe. We're very often concentrated on the war in Ukraine. Families and women are having a tough time. We observe the fate of the refugees, but we have 196 countries, over 100 democracies where equality is guaranteed by the constitution. But in case of 130 states, there is no guarantee of equality, and this broader perspective is very much needed within our discussions, within our Eurocentrism. We are sitting comfortably in our armchairs, and we think that there is much to be done in Poland, but if we become aware what is to be done in other countries constituting this global UN community, it's much more to do. And I would like to stress that today the fearless girl is here to symbolize that sometimes the aspirations of women and girls, they can encounter some strong barriers rather than stereotypes, lack of rules and procedures in business or in any other places on the job market. I'm talking about anti-discrimination procedures. So in other places all around the world, women very often need to fight for having any right to education, to better life, to self-existence, and to election and voting rights. It's a non-standard, and this is the element that should be added, and I wanted to add it within my short speech. I know we are pressed by time, so thank you very much for your presence, and first and foremost, I would like to thank to all women gathered here. That was the executive director from the UN Global Compact in Poland. So now let's move on to panel discussion. It will be highly dynamic debate because 3 discussions ahead of us, a lot of great speakers who will share with us their guidance, their tips and experience. Today's event is about stressing the role of female leaders and the contribution of women into gender equality. And for this reason, let me invite the first guest on the stage, Anne Prendergast, the CEO of State Street Global Advisors Europe. Please take your seat.
Central and Southeast Europe.
Ari Name, Regional Manager from Central and Southeast Europe from International Finance Corporation. Valérie Gaucheron, the CEO from L'Oréal Poland and Baltic Hub, Polish business leader and representative of international leader. Alicja Koleśnik, the member of the board from DOS. Karolina Radziszewska, Vice President for HR from SKA, Katarzyna Byczkowska, Managing Director from BAS Poland, and Agnieszka Szumielewicz, Chief Executive Officer from Brand Republic. Please take your seats.
Witam wszystkich bardzo serdecznie.
Welcome wholeheartedly.
O, proszę uprzejmie, może ja pomogę.
Maybe I will support you.
Zacznijmy, pozwolę sobie zacząć od naszych zagranicznych.
Let me start with our foreign guests. Madam Anne Prendergast, you have been leading global institutions for years already. Have you ever encountered in your career any cases of discrimination? Did it impact your actions in the area of gender equality?
Jest. Czy działają mikrofony? Może poprosimy o pomoc techniczną.
We need some technical support. Mics do not work.
Jeszcze momencik. Widzę, że pan uruchamia wszystkie mikrofony, aby były dostępne dla każdego.
We are going to have more mics working. Should be fine now.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that I've experienced discrimination, but I think at various stages in my career, the order of things was quite different. So when I started, I come from a client-facing background. So I worked in sales and marketing. And when I started in that career, there were a group of females who were all around the same stage in life. And we then were all getting married around the same time and having children. And actually, slowly, all the others left because it was just too hard to maintain the balance between work and home. And actually, nobody had done it before us. Now, I decided I would try and hang in there as long as I could. But it was a patriarchal environment. It was male-dominated. And so therefore, the way I managed in that environment was I probably contorted myself in order to survive in that environment, simply because that was how it worked. So I never spoke about my family, and when my children got sick, it was always a challenge to try and manage that. And again, it wasn't discrimination, it was simply how it worked. And the way I saw it was, if I want to do this job, then I do need to do that. I need to make the adjustments. And I think the learning from that, and it's something we always talk about, is making sure that we bring our best selves to work. And you can only do that by being authentic about who you are. And I think that things have moved on substantially from that. And that's a good thing. And we need to continue to enable that to happen, whether that's through the policies we have, hybrid working as we now have. It is thinking about how we enable everybody to come to work as their full self.
A co według pani, jeśli chodzi o działania liderów wszystkich korporacji?
And when it comes to leaders of all corporations, what should they take into consideration so that their innovative leadership in gender equality can be effective?
So I think there's three strands to what you should think about. It's hiring, so are your hiring policies appropriate? And that's thinking about, do you get a pool of talent who includes diverse talent? And if you don't to the first go, because sometimes that's what people come back with, is saying that there aren't enough people, diverse people, so you need to work with agencies and HR who will do that. In hiring, you need to ensure that if there are diverse candidates, that they see diverse interviewers. That's really important. Then on retention, you need to ensure, again, like I say, your policies are appropriate. And like I talked about earlier, policies should differ for different groups of people. And I think we're getting better about that. We're getting better at recognizing that. And then there's the promotion, because again, a lot of organizations have managed to get diversity at the lower levels, but it is that evolution through the ranks, and also as people mature and they, as I say, develop their own families or they evolve themselves, you have to keep up with that. So making sure that there's an ability to promote. And so within State Street, we are very clear in our promotion cycle each year to ensure that we have sufficient diversity within that, and challenging managers if that isn't the case. So I think if you look at it through those lenses, hiring, retention and promotion, and think about every step along the journey, that's how you, and it is the individual areas, and you'll make progress.
Jeszcze tylko dopytam o Unię Europejską, bo działa Pani w obecnie.
European Union now. Now you are active in Europe. Can you see actual changes in this area here?
Yes, I can, and we heard about some of it this morning, and I think it's definitely happening. Is it all at the pace at which we'd like? Maybe not, but actually we see huge advances in some areas, and then it slows down, and we have to expect that. This will not be a straight line journey, but you know, in talking about what we heard about earlier, in Ireland, where I'm based, in 2016, we identified within our listed companies in the Irish Stock Exchange that only 16% of women were, only 16% of board positions were women, lower than Poland at that time. And in that intervening time, we've increased it now to 36. Very simply it was a government and private sector initiative, but it's a very simple report that's issued every year to say, here's the progression of those listed companies. And actually there's one left that hasn't any women. And just by the PR around it, it's becoming ever increasingly difficult to do that. So I think there's a huge amount of work that's been done. Let's not expect it all to happen in line with our expectations, but we need to continue to promoting it. Yeah.
Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you very much. Pytanie do Pana Ari Name. Również reprezentuje Pan globalną instytucję.
Ari Name, you're representing global financial institution. What is your perspective? You're a manager, but you're a man at the same time. So what are the changes in the area of gender equality in your area, in your industry?
Thank you very much. I mean, let me start with a personal note. I mean, as the father of a fearless 13-year-old girl, I must say we have made a lot of progress, and I must congratulate the Warsaw Stock Exchange. Thanks for this invitation. Last year, we, together with the UN Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, IFC drafted new guidelines on how stock exchange can best promote gender equality through the private sector. And the Warsaw Stock Exchange initiative and leadership in that area is very well recognized in the publication. So I would encourage all of you to have a look. But as the father of a 13-year-old girl, I wish we would not have to celebrate this day. And I think that when I hear from previous speakers that, you know, according to the Global Gender Gap report, we will need 132 years to bridge the gap. I think this is what we need if things don't move, if things don't change, but we have the power to change them, and so it's very grateful to me to be here. IFC is a part of the World Bank Group, of course, and we are a financial institution, so we have long realized that one of the best investments we could make was to invest in our women. But also we are a development institution, and so we recognize as part of the World Bank Group gender strategy the critical importance of the private sector to really empower women. Now we are also one of the most diverse institutions in the world. I mean, 4,000 staff only in the world, but 150 nationalities and 50 languages spoken inside the IFC. The first point I want to make is diversity is not enough, and I think you made it this morning, and diversity is not enough. And for the past 10 years, what we have done is engaging in equity and inclusion. Equity because every individual in the institution need to feel that they are valued for who they are, but also inclusion because everyone needs to be empowered to contribute the best of himself or herself to the institution. And so diversity is great, but this is certainly not enough. So what we've done, I mean, over the past 10 years, I'm very proud that we have achieved gender equality in our senior level, just below the CEO level, what we call our vice presidency cohort. We have now a specific appointee who is leading our diversity, equity, and inclusion program across the institution, and that's his only job. We have achieved through, so we are an investor, of course, as you know, and through our nominee director in the board of companies we invest in, we have now achieved 54% of our nominee directors being women, way ahead of our 2025 targets, and we have set ourselves to a 2030 target of full 100% what we call our gender balance index at 100% by 2030. Maybe one thing I would want to contribute is it doesn't come only by diversity, equity, and one thing I would want to contribute really as a personal experience is the importance of training our managers and leaders everywhere we are on this topic. And one training I would want to use as an example is a training that has been mainstream throughout IFC, which is about our biases. And I think that what I learned there is even if you feel that you are yourself the most inclusive person in the world, going through a biases training will show you that you have still, each of us individually has still a lot of progress to make. So I would stop here.
Ma pan bardzo szerokie międzynarodowe doświadczenie. Może jest jeden z krajów
You have a very broad experience. Maybe there is a country in the world that would be a role model for everyone in the area that we are discussing.
Look, I am also a diplomat, so I cannot really, I cannot really pick a country. No, I would not even dare picking Finland. But we have data, right? I mean, the World Bank just issued its Women Business and the Law report this year, which shows what countries at least have full legal equality between genders. And I'm sorry to say that only 14 countries in the world achieve this gender equality. And then, of course, the Global Gender Gap reports highlights that North America, Northern Europe are a bit ahead of us. But again, I mean, IFC works in emerging markets. There is still a lot of work to do. And we have a very, very intense thought leadership agenda through boards, through women in the workforce, through childcare, tackling childcare. I mean, very important issues, and the topic is so broad that we could spend hours on it.
Rozumiem i dziękuję za pana dyplomatyczną postawę. Teraz pytanie do pana Valérie Groschon. Odpowiada pan
And now, Valérie Groschon, you're responsible for Poland and Baltic Hub. I understand that we are in a very specific moment because of the events in the East. Are the geopolitical conditions, or have the geopolitical conditions changed the approach to gender equality? Did you have to take any innovative activities? And did you have to take any special actions to fight for gender equality?
Thank you, Dzień dobry. First, I just want to mention that as one of the few men in this panel, I'm very humbled and very honored to take part of this discussion, because indeed the voices around gender equity are still mainly women. I think last year in LinkedIn, the top voices for gender equity were 15 great thought leaders, but all women, no men. So I'm happy as a man, as a leader, to take part to this discussion. So to answer your question, the geopolitical events or the local and regional context, I would say do not affect our approach to gender equity. So the gender equity for L'Oréal, for example, is a long-term approach. So it's really consistent leadership. I see the topic of the day is innovative leadership, but for me, it's more about consistent leadership. You know, it's not a new story. So the company has a 69% workforce female. The board of L'Oréal 50%. In Poland, the executive committee 66% women. Worldwide, 55% of the key positions are occupied by women, 60% in Poland. And for example, the pay gap, gender pay gap in Poland, according to the EDGE Certified Foundation methodology, is minus 0.38%. So for us, it's a long term, it's a consistent movement. There is nothing new, you know, let's say. We are by the side of women since many years, you know, and of course we have some very important flagship programs like the L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science program. By the way, UNGC, Anya and Camille is also one of the partners. We award sponsorships to female scientists, which are only 11% of the senior scientists in Europe are females. Only 29% of scientific researchers are females. So this program, we've been running it for 23 years in Poland. We continue, there is no change, you know. So what changed is, for example, regarding gender equity, is the policy towards fathers. So, you know, in Poland, there is a 2 weeks legal requirement paternity leave, let's say. And for example, we triplicated it. So we give 6 weeks, you know, since actually this year to fathers. So 20 fathers took it last year. We hope for much more this year. But that's a way for us to keep pushing the social and societal progress towards gender equity with a concrete example. So the fathers, you know, also they self-restrict themselves culturally in Poland to take this leave, etc. So it very much depends on the attitude of the employer to give a positive, you know, environment to this kind of thing. So, for example, we believe that balancing the roles will benefit both sides and can be also enhanced with the flexible hybrid mode of working. So concretely, you are asking me about the regional or local context. So we do this for the fathers, for example. And it's true that for us, gender equity, as L'Oréal, with our, let's say, very high women empowerment history, is also to take care of the men. So I agree with you. We train also our people. 75,000 employees have been trained on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we also train the hiring manager to find the good balance, because I told you 69%. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it too much? You know, it depends on each department, etc. So we also want to secure a good balance, because, as you mentioned, Anne, we are totally convinced that at the end of the day, diverse and balanced teams are more performant. You know, so we are absolutely convinced that indeed gender balanced and diverse teams generate more diverse ideas, more creativity, and therefore better answer the needs of the people. So that's also why we are totally convinced about this topic.
Bardzo dziękuję. No i także branża kosmetyczna jest sfeminizowana, podobnie wydawałoby się jak...
It looks like the cosmetic industry is totally full of ladies. The same goes for the pharmaceutical business represented by Alicia. The board that you manage consists of 2/3 women. What else is important in the area of gender equality? What have you managed to successfully employ? I think I'm a lucky woman working in this company. My organization employs 80% of women, and we are the biggest employer in the pharmaceutical business. Just to outline the situation, where do we have such a high participation of women? Not everybody knows that historically Poland was the first country in Europe where women were allowed to study pharmacy. Poland was also the first country that opened the university focused on pharmaceutical business exclusively. And this probably
conditioned the fact that women are very eager to study this area. 80% of women, these are female students, and this historical conditions determine probably the situation. What differentiates us from the market? We heavily invest in development, in education, starting from internships at the medical universities, through our involvement and co-financing of medical programs focused on women, addressed at women, and that's why our organization in this pharmaceutical business, we got the title of the Great Place to Work for the 7th time, and our employees are very happy with conditions that we create for them. Conditions that we create mainly for women. But let me answer the question, your question. We do not believe that this is the gender that determines the professional success. I believe it comes from skills, experience, expertise. That's what happens in our organization, in our business. So I believe that nowadays we work in a different context. Given the fact how cosmetics industry is feminized and feminized, and this maybe in this industry we should grant a better feeling of stability to men. Well, it's a tricky question, but I believe that men feel really well in a company which employs so many women. But we take care of all employees, no matter men or women. Question at Karolina Radziszewska. In case of construction business that you represent, you work for Skanska, we often tend to think it's an industry which is dominated by men. This industry requires engineering expertise. Bearing in mind these stereotypes, cliches, maybe we should take any special actions to work for gender equality. These are not stereotypes, these are facts. In construction industry, the representation of women is definitely smaller than other industries that already made this journey from the totally male-dominated industry to the industry which reflects the true proportions of the society. Skanska is not only a construction business, it is also development business. And in development area, developers area, we definitely equalized the opportunities for men and women. So in our region, in Skanska, this proportion is 50-50, including top management. When it comes to construction business stricter, the situation is a bit more complex, however.
So it's multi-generational social processes that are required. In order to see more fearless women and women engineers, we need more fearless girls. In order to have more fearless girls, we need to start from the very beginning, of this tunnel, to be able to hire more engineers at the end. So from our side, from the business side, we can enlist two streaks, two paths. First thing, to show to these fearless girls that there is a myth that women are not good enough for science, and it's only a myth. So modeling, showing examples of women who succeeded in science, who showed what they can do. So to support education on the one hand, and on the other hand, these are things that can be done within the organization, so as the environment accept the woman, as it was said, and it's in her entirety. So on the one hand, it's a woman, a human creature with a brilliant mind, and at the same time, it's a mother. So we cannot punish her for her motherhood. We need to create the environment in which everyone is educated enough to know that some jokes or some statements shouldn't be spoken in the company. And this is something which we do at our company. We create a relevant environment, making women feel good. It is very important, and all of you quoted some data. It's something really critical to measure, to assume some goals, to fix some objectives, and with regard to participation of women. Otherwise, we will need another 100 or 200 years in order to achieve at this ratio. Thank you very much for this voice. That was Anna Katarzyna Byczkowska from BASF Poland. Chemistry is a woman. It's a good step towards innovative leadership. BASF Poland published a report, Women in Chemistry, the first report on gender equality in the chemical sector. What are the outcomes of your report and conclusions? Let me start from the beginning because we got too many important conclusions, generally taking into account the situation of women in Poland and generally in the industry and the percentage ratios, how the situation has been changing. We had many different reports on the number of women hired by companies. This morning, I read about the representation of women who have above 140 listed companies in Poland, and about 17% in these companies' boards. When it comes to CEO and managing directors, it's only 2%. So 3 women. So we have 3 women CEOs. So the situation is pitiful. When it comes to the chemical industry, this is a highly masculine industry. What's interesting, there are more chemistry students who are female than male. And then less of them work in this industry, and even less get some senior positions. So when it comes to the chemical industry, our ultimate objective is a kind of our social mission, because in our environment we did everything we could in our company. At BASF Poland we have 54% of women leaders, over 50% at the level of the board. The objective was 30%. So globally, in some places it is very difficult to achieve it. So we want to enchant this chemical sector. We launched a campaign within our employer branding activities. We wanted to show to women that there are many highly interesting functions and professions within industry, and it's not like that you need to work at a factory that's a mundane physical work, that you need to carry heavy weights. You can be a forklift truck driver. It's great fun. So that was the first step in this campaign, to enchant the functions in the industrial sector. Today, work at a factory means something totally different than before. So we presented some role models of women working abroad at our company, and now we enter into the realm of education. So we want to get to young people, especially young girls and teenagers, to let them know that it's cool, that chemistry is fun, education is great, science is it's really, really cool and funny. So we want to change her perception of the chemical industry, and we want to change the mindset of masses from the youngest generations. I've asked you about your campaign, Chemistry is a Woman. Yes, everything was carried out within this campaign, but this is the third or the fourth, correct me if I'm wrong, let's assume it's the fourth one, edition of this campaign. So we've been carrying it out for many years, and we started from our women employees representing different professions. For example, woman hired in logistics, a forklift truck driver who is a woman as well. So they tell their story, they show how satisfied they are with their function at the industry. They pursue their professional careers abroad. This is the fourth edition is ahead of us. So now we focused on the youngest women and girls. We want to educate them. We want to tell them that you can do anything, that it's all up to you. You can do very important and interesting things after graduation from the chemical department. So it's not only a male thing. So we are launching cooperation with many interesting companies and entities. Agnieszka Szumielewicz, supervising a lot of social actions for many years. You've been engaging in gender equality on the labor market. Please evaluate which campaign proved the most effective, and what were the most effective features? I highly appreciate any social action that we initiate for our customers and clients, and my personal commitment and engagement, because it's highly satisfying to me when I can see the effects and the outreach that we managed to build, and this outreach is translated into an actual change. My life credo, is that do not give good advice, offer good example. Be a good example. So this is something which I try to implement within my company. I've been operating in the business for over 20 years, and I can see this great leap in terms of values represented. These are values which are not imposed on us, but they evolved. We mapped them, and we strongly believe in them. And that causes that my company today is an absolutely aware, modern, and highly inclusive organization representing the SME company. You represent large corporations and large entities. I represent a small company. But the scale doesn't matter. What matters is what we do inside our organization. And the most important is to not only talk about what you did, but talk in a way you become a role model. And you also collect feminine art as a hobby. It's very symbolic, but maybe it means a bit more in the context of today's topic of our conversation. Yes, of course. Art is about emotions and experience. It's the image of our times, a commentary to the actual political and social situation. It is set in the context. Do you know how many in the neighboring institution, the National Museum, what is the percentage of female artworks? This is the information I got about 2 weeks ago, because I asked. It's only 4%. Only 4% of artists displayed in the National Gallery are women. It's devastating, because as we see, women represent more than 50% of the population of our societies. In the 70s, the American art specialist Linda Knockin asked a question in her essay: why there are no great female artists. And as 50 years ago, this question is still valid. And I'm asking myself this question every day. Why great female artists are neglected? They're not streets named after. We have no Tamara the Lempicka street. She was a giant of art, and there is not such a street anywhere in Poland. Maria Konopnicka, the Polish author, dominates, but sportswomen are absent. Well, now we're talking about arts, so I will refer to arts because I'm good at it. So, in the fourth wave of feminism that we're experiencing now, we have been fighting for 100 years for voting rights. Then we became socially mobile, and every day we do and we put our effort to be self-reliant. And now the time has come to support female artists, and this is something I'm engaging in. I'm supporting female artists. And I'd like, thanks to what I do, to affect the image of the world, to make it full, and to make it full of women, and to be a good opening of what is ahead of us. Thank you very much. Let me thank to all leaders participating in this discussion for your effort for building the society made of fearless girls. Once again, Anne Prendergast, Katarzyna Byczkowska, Valérie Gorgeron, Alicja Koleśnik, Ari Naim, Karolina Radziszewska, and Agnieszka Szumielewicz. Within Business and Human Rights United Nations Global Compact Network in Poland, there was a team set up for gender pay gap. This team engages in the projected changes in the EU directives with regard to gender pay gap. Their aim is to increase the share of women leaders within listed companies. A round of applause to you.
To podbija oczywiście brzmienie dzwonu i jego.
Let's hear it once again as a symbol. So I've mentioned target gender equality because within United Nations Global Compact, companies try to achieve their ambitious goals with regard to representation and women leadership. Gender pay gap is another important topic, so we're going to learn more about it and about some concrete examples of actions taken, steps taken by companies that we invite onto the stage. Agnieszka Lechman-Filipiak, a partner and DLA Piper legal firm, Małgorzata Kloka, co-founder of 30% Club Poland and the ambassador of the brand, Aleksandra Robaszkiewicz, head of corporate communications and CSR at Lidl Poland, and the moderator of the discussion will be Katarzyna Łastowiecka.
Proszę się poczęstować mikrofonami.
Please help yourself with the mic.
Widzę, że nie wszystkie panie do nas dotarły. Pani Kasia będzie później w dyskusji, jak rozumiem, oczywiście, także skupimy się na naszych paniach. Pani Agnieszka Lechman-Filipiak, jest pani koordynatorką.
Agnieszka Lechman-Filipiak, you are the coordinator for gender pay gap. What is the direction you're heading towards? I'm a coordinator with Irena Olszewska, my dear colleague. We have the pleasure to manage the group. Our objective is first and foremost to get acquainted and to familiarize all of us with the guidelines which are provided in the draft directive, and a fruitful discussion on how to implement this directive, or before, what actions could and should be taken before the directive will be transposed to the Polish legal system. It goes beyond any doubts that all these steps should start a bit earlier, that we shouldn't wait for the works to be finalized. I mean, works on the draft directive and its implementations. In line with the draft directive, and I should stress at this point that I'm talking about the directive on strengthening and directive on equal pay for men and women for the same work, representing the same value.
To jest główny cel.
So this is the main objective.
Chodzi przede wszystkim o to, że stan rzeczy jest taki, że i w państwach Unii Europejskiej,
in the EU member states, including Poland,
zakaz dyskryminacji, w tym ze względu na
there is a ban on discrimination based on gender, and it goes beyond any doubts that this principle is not respected efficiently. We are observing a gender pay gap. There are many questions about the source of this gap. So there should be some tools implemented to streamline the application of equal pay rule for women and men. You mentioned that discrimination is forbidden. I've been listening to the radio. 50% of women in Poland feel discriminated because of different sources of discrimination. Pay gap is one of them. Yes. It's confirmed by the research at the EU level. The gender pay gap, in line with Eurostat research, is 14%. In Poland, it's a bit less. It seems that it's about 8%. Everything depends on the methodology adopted. This difference is shrinking. So this is not an upward trend. The tendency is to close the gap. Nevertheless, in order to achieve equality of payment, we need to take the holistic approach. It's not only about making something deliberatory, that employers differentiate the salaries. No, it's something deeper. We should take into consideration the labor market and the role of women at this job market. There are less professionally active women than men, and there are more women combining their professional and private lives. There are more women who, when they choose their future employer, they're guided by the premise that they need to combine both family and work. So sometimes their pay is lower because they want to work within fixed time. They don't want to work overtime.
Niewątpliwie myślę, że bo dzisiaj też poruszany był temat uprawnień.
As today we've been talking also about parenthood and rights related, we should take this approach. Maybe fathers should be more engaged in family lives. To support their women in her professional career.
I can also take the perspective of my industry, and this is not the phenomenon that I see in my law firm exclusively, something that is visible in the law profession as such.
młodsze
When
koleżanki
I look
też
at younger
wysokiego
colleagues,
doświadczenia.
and also I say it in my experience, when we start our professional career, we are not worse than our male colleagues. To the contrary, we work more, we work harder, we are better graduates, we are smart, and we have a great opportunity to have great career in the law firm. We move on equally along with men. Sometimes we are a step ahead of them, and all of a sudden there is this family aspect coming. We want to have our families, and usually female lawyers make break. They disappear from the company for months or longer, and meanwhile male colleagues, they climb this career ladder, they become partners, they are promoted, and we come back to the law firm, and we have to combine family and work, and we have to fight for the promotion. And I believe this is a huge space for improvement. Definitely, we have these capacities to occupy similar positions, to get the same payment as our male colleagues get. 50% Club Polska, 30% Club Polska, promoting the gender equality at the workplace, ran a broad survey analyzing the low representation of women in managerial positions. Could you tell us about the results of this survey? Yes, a few days ago we published the results of this survey, and it's worth mentioning that this survey was carried out together with UN Global Compact. As you mentioned, this survey was called Let Them Hear Us, the female voice in corporate businesses. We wanted to reach out to women, and we succeeded. We invited women to participate, and there were 4,300 women that responded. That's a lot. And it is really hard to be indifferent vis-a-vis such a strong female voice. There are many outcomes and conclusions. I would like to recommend you to get acquainted with this report. However, I would like to point out two specifically important aspects. The first one, women are definitely ambitious, motivated, and they want to be promoted. It's a very valuable conclusion, because I believe that many of us encounter stereotypes that women simply do not care for professional career as much as men do. And this is a stereotype, it's a cliché, and this does not reflect the reality. Let me provide some hard data. Over 90% of the respondents said that promotion and professional career is very important to them. Over 3/4 of the respondents said that women care as much as men do when it comes to career, promotion and success at workplace. Over 70% of female respondents said they never given up on promotion. Another stereotype, by the way. Another extremely interesting conclusion from the perspective of data on participation of women on executive boards and managerial positions. And this is the data that proves that over 50%, almost 50% of women said that currently or in the future they would like to take the top managerial executive position. So there are motivated, highly motivated women. So this is the survey proving the strength of women. However, strong, motivated women have to face various problems, various issues, barriers and obstacles at workplace. Again, let me quote some statistical data again. Over 45% of respondents said that in their industries they do not receive the same career opportunities as men in similar positions. Over 55% of female respondents said that in similar positions women get higher requirements. 30% of women experience discriminatory behaviors because of their gender, and almost 1/3 of female respondents were omitted when promotions, bonuses, or allocation of tasks. So there are many, many aspects of disadvantageous situations. So I hope that women who want to be promoted, who want to combine family and work life, so their voice will be heard. Aleksandra Robaszkiewicz, Lidl, to promote gender equality, you introduced the competition workplace, work fair. What this competition is all about? Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to this Lidl fair pay, not fair play. Fair play principles, of course, this is embedded in our ethical code, and this is required from all business partners and suppliers. And the initiative that you mentioned, this is the initiative that we undertook together with UN Global Compact and the advisory company. As of 2019, we've been involved in changing the world, inspiring the world for the change, to implement gender pay equality. In Lidl, the payment is combined with the position. When I was taking the position in Lidl, nobody asked me about the amount of money I want to earn, and the company was able, therefore, to avoid stereotypes, negotiation, syndrome of cheating, talking about some psychological aspects, because as we know, discrimination of women follows certain various backgrounds, and it's somehow embedded in history and culture, and as in pays are somehow allocated to the positions. When we talk about the store employees, distribution center, HR managers, it's always the same. We always take this systemic approach, and no matter whether man or woman takes a given role, there is in this position there is a given remuneration allocated. If you are promoted to the position of CEO, you will earn this or that, and you can accept it or not. These are our standards. So we want business to be transparent in this model. It is honest, it's most inclusive one, and it's just. And this approach counteracts other discrimination, not only against women. We also have people of different races, ages, different topics related to inclusion and diversity. Thanks to UN Global Compact, our initiative for 5 years have been promoting already this approach to business. When we initiated the competition, we assumed that only retail sector would be interested in this initiative, and we were surprised how many companies, dozens of every year, joining us to participate in this initiative, to go through a deep audit, and we expect to provide information on payment on different positions, to show the structure of power, whether to show the participation of women among the managerial positions. We want the companies to share their good practices. Every year we have participants not only from the retail, trade, commerce industry, but also IT, finance industry, etc. And we believe we do support promotion of good practices, and we create a better and more just world for us and for new generations. This will be translated in the improvement of the competitiveness of the Polish economy. Already now I can invite all of you, all representatives of businesses, women, men, to invite you to participate in this endeavor. We mainly focus on small and medium-sized enterprises, as we know that they do not get these standards from international structures. All the more we would like to encourage you to be with us and to get to
dla bardziej
Our experience of the bigger businesses that already introduced these standards. Leader for fair pay, gender pay gap, business and human rights, and global compact. These are only examples of great initiatives, and we keep our fingers crossed for the upcoming initiatives. Thank you very much, ladies. This is a very dynamic day, so in a moment we will invite next guests. Today we talk a lot about innovative action for gender equality, and this is related to everything that can be called empathetic business.
To oczywiście ogromne wyzwanie.
It's a huge challenge, of course, when we talk about the situation of business that has to surpass the state in the undertaken actions, because the best practices, inclusive communication, media campaigns, all activities for gender equality, all this constitutes huge challenge. I would like to invite now Małgorzata Golatowska, brand and communication leader from D&I Champion East Europe region, 3M Poland. Agnieszka Gutowska, Bogumiła Lewik, Senior Legal Counsel at Capgemini. Paulina Babochowska, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Lead Allegro. Dorota Kuprianowicz-Legutko from T-Mobile. Ursula Okarma, member of the Management Board in Strategic Transaction and Clients Relations in Kruk. Barbara Stępień, corporate in L'Oréal Poland and Baltic Hub, and Katarzyna Gaweł-Brudkiewicz, that I mentioned already, Head of Internal Engagement Communications, leader of Equal Voice. As there are more of us than we thought before, let me rearrange the stage. This discussion is going to be open, and please don't be afraid. Exchange information, exchange your opinions, exchange your experience. I would like to ask you whether in your careers encountered any situations of discrimination in the beginning of your career, maybe in different companies, businesses, maybe discrimination was against you, against the other people. How did it change your approach, your attitudes and behaviors in such situations? Good morning. I'm a mom of two daughters. Sorry, two kids, a daughter and a son. Sorry, it's a Women's Day, so I'm only thinking about my woman. My daughter, sorry. I have the feeling that I started my career 3 times. After my studies, when I graduated, after my first child, and after the second child. When I got the first child, when I got back 3 months after maternity leave, they asked me if I'm going to have another child. When I said yes, they made me redundant. After the second child, this was similar situation. So yes, I personally experienced discrimination. But following this experience, did you say, no, stop, I will no longer actually allow anyone to treat me this way? Well, we were in our company, we talk a lot about this problem. We say we have to start with ourselves. We have the algorithm that verifies how much we talk about women in media. So this is discussion based on hard data, facts, and not just a discussion with journalists. We write, because journalists often say, oh, Kasia, we write a lot about women, but we say equal voice for your service is only 8%. So tell me where you write about women. So I did not give up. I have a daughter, I have a son, and mainly for my daughter, I want to fight for times when we really have gender equality. And she's going to become fearless girl. I have the feeling she is already a fearless girl because she sees her mom who became fearless, and well, it doesn't change the fact that my daughter does not see true role models that would be appealing. She would say, oh, I can become a prime minister, a president, and so on and so forth. And that's the role of media, to promote it. Any of you ladies who would like to share your experience? Yes, I know the topic of parenthood. I'm a mom of 3 kids, and when we talk about discrimination, we can also talk about discrimination strictly described by law.
my legal system, discrimination that can seek some liability, but we can also focus on other aspects. This small comments, innocent comments, resulting from some systemic errors and situation or the environment that does not fully understand the gender equality topics. Once I remember, I've heard a comment saying, "You don't look like a mother of 3 kids." It was a woman who made this comment. We were just entering the professional relation, and we were to implement a project together. I don't believe she had so many bad intentions, but the comments like, asking me whether I'm going to reduce my work intensity, how long am I going to stay with a company. So these are the small suggestions where I have to get open, I have to leave my comfort zone. And definitely they do not help on this individual platform. They discourage, they somehow weaken your self-esteem. You start thinking how we function in the society. This experience is completely distorted. It could be, all these roles could be perceived completely differently if maternity is a part of life, as a phase in our career, because of my maternity, I'm aware where I am, who I am. I have this identity, professional and private identity, and that's how that's what we should focus on: the shaping, the right attitudes and behaviors and education. Simply. Let me say that I was lucky enough not to experience such drastic aspects of discriminations. So as I said, that was my luck. And I would like to share my perspective now. For me, for myself, it was a big challenge to be aware that I don't have to do things following strict corporate standards. Just this awareness was for me very important experience. Well, talking about fearless girl, I have one girl, fearless girl, and she managed to avoid the stereotypes of pink or blue blankets. And she is really aware, because we educated her intentionally. We told her she could do a lot, everything. And sometimes, unintentionally, we somehow program these fearless girls by saying, you can do this, you can't do that. And sometimes these may be small gestures that we are not aware of, or small comments, at first glance, innocent comments that may do a lot of harm. Let me share my story. It will be a positive story. But there will be some shadows. Over 20 years ago, I met the creator of Kruk SA, Piotr Kruk, about our future cooperation. That was the first step in our cooperation. What happened? I've heard from the founder of a financial company managing receivables. He said, the most important are values, respect, cooperation. And in the second or the third sentence, it was over 20 years ago, he said that he's a feminist, so a man, used this F word at that point. And I thought this is exactly the place I'd like to be in. For some time, I'm a member of the management board. I'm responsible for investment strategy and product strategy, but now about shadows. Can you imagine
Dear ladies and gentlemen, what happened when 20 years ago I went to the industry conference to London? There was about 300 or 400 people, maybe 5 women. And then, taking into account the organization I was to represent, and that we did not think whether women are better or worse, we just created diverse teams from the very beginning. I was a kind of fearless girl myself. I was not afraid of going into the room and sharing my opinion. So we can choose organizations which are founded on such values. Let's stick to that. This is something we should do. And what about the current companies, organizations you represent? What you feel is the most innovative or the most efficient? Maybe let me take this question. I will not disappoint you, but not talking about modern technological solutions. I take holistic and interdisciplinary approach. This is my point of focus. Today, on this International Women's Day, we celebrate in IKEA that 40% of our general directors in IKEA all around the world are women, and this is to draw your attention not to the fact that it's resulted from some Excel calculation and facts and figures, but it was the three-lateral approach. Let me present the Polish example, because apart from the equal representation, which translates into equal chances, succession with inclusion of different underrepresented groups, I can tell here that in managerial positions in 2022, we got 50-50 ratio. And let me stress that it was not generated artificially. It was a result of our actions which have been taken before. And it was mentioned today, and it's something that should be stressed. There is no equality without equal pay and equal salary. We contribute to this for 3 years. Every year we're subject to gender equal pay research survey, let's say. Well, about 160,000 of our global organization are analyzed from the perspective of their salary level. It's important that we are monitoring the situation on an ongoing basis, and where we see some differences, we try to define the action plan in order to bridge the gap. I mean, competence and performance, of course, but also there are other aspects like longer absenteeism, rotation, and so on. And the third pillar of our approach to gender equality, which is very innovative, especially taking into account that less than 3% in Poland use their parental leave. In 2020, we introduced additional 4-week fully paid fathers' leave, and about 300 fathers used this opportunity already. There are 3 premises making up for the gender equality. We don't want to appreciate fathers in a specific way, but there is no equality without taking into consideration both sides. Of course, work-life balance directive will change something in this respect also, but without this element, gender equality cannot move on. Yeah, business is a step ahead of the state usually. If I may, let me present this is the service company we deal in real estate. Empowerment is the most effective. So offering some authority to women in the business realm. If we take into consideration the research quoted today, if the general manager is a woman, starting from 2020, before we had another woman leader in the company, so a long story of female leadership. And what's more, the majority of departments are governed by women. We are constantly in gender equality program in cooperation with the UN Global Compact, and every year we're subject to the gender equality gap survey. It's a highly complex tool which we get directly from New York, and there is a few dozen of questions, deep questions, and last year our result was 11% higher year on year. Real estate is a highly masculine sector. For this purpose, we take part in Top Women for Real Estate initiatives, supporting women in their development within such masculine and deeply male sectors like real estate. Some other examples from the perspective of a purely technological company. 4 years ago, we implemented the program that is still continued. This is the real diversity. As my first speakers said, diversity is a matter of hygiene within our company. Equity and inclusion is something which is at the heart of our attention. From the point of view of innovative solutions, a lot has been said about education. To us, the education always comes first. For this purpose, the mandatory digital training that we offer, this is diversity and inclusion training, also to explain different forms of harassment, discrimination, and mobbing, and also on our onboarding platforms for newcomers and partners. We deliver trainings in the company strategy and policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and everything is explained from the very beginning. We try to
gender gapu, dlatego że my jesteśmy, powiedzmy, o tyle w tej szczęśliwej sytuacji.
With regard to gender pay gap, the technological sector is dominated by male employees. We have 2 female board members, so over 33%. There is also Dominique Leroy, a female CEO representing the European part of the company. Over 40% of women in the Polish branch, and we aspire to 50%. So this is a fantastic statistic. I think I'm in a quite privileged situation. I represent Gemini group, which is an international corporation. To us, diversity is a thing, as a matter of fact. That translates into our mindset. If we meet our friends and colleagues, very diverse, from different backgrounds, cultures, representing different mindsets, we become open, and this openness translates into our everyday work. Also, with regard to equal treatment of women and men, to us, this diversity is a norm, and inclusivity and inclusion is a necessity. There were different figures quoted today. It's important to measure in order to know where we are. We also measure the participation of women from different angles at our company, And we can tell and we can be proud that at Capgemini Poland, 50% of our employees are women. At the highest F grade, it's 60%. But not to paint a rosy picture, we are a technological company, so we measure the participation of women in technical functions. We know that it's a challenge for us. It's 39% in Capgemini Poland, which is still a good result if we take into account other data quoted before, telling us that women in science is 13 and in scientific faculties, technical faculties, 13 to 17%. So we define the rooms for improvement all the time. There was a mention of the book, Invisible Women. For many people, it opened their eyes because we did not know how technology discriminates women. Not to repeat such mistakes, we have our code of ethics. But we also have our code of ethics in AI. We know that while developing new technologies, we need to embrace different sources of diversity, also gender diversity. There is a slogan in our sector, garbage in, garbage out. So we take care of high quality of our in-feed data. This cannot be historical data very often because 200 years ago there were no female architects. So if we take a shortcut, data will be biased. We get certified and we acquire independent certificates. We're one of 4 companies in Poland certified with Edge assets, the only company in Poland certified with Edge Plus. These are 2 independent certifications. So to us, it comes as a necessity to educate, because we know these women and girls. The IT sector is in need of employees. So we need to include girls. Through IT revolution, we spread the awareness at schools, but we support other organizations cooperating with students, as for example, Geek Girls. Carrot to us is a must. You've mentioned education. Taking into account the steps taken by the companies and being a step ahead of the state, can we push our governments to foster education in this respect at a preschool level? Is it a realistic scenario? Thank you very much. And thank you for your invitation to this. I represent 3M technological company, an industrial company where the majority of employees are male. So the voice of female employees is very important and is also heard at our organization. We create, starting from our HQ, we create structures to support the voice of women and also to support the voice of other groups which tend to be excluded. So with regard to what you said, I will not repeat after you because we have in our system a lot of good programs, policies and good practices causing that equity and inclusion is respected in our company. But I'd like to stress that without men, these activities cannot succeed. So the education you're asking about is very important. I think that we implement it at all our branches. and male employees are invited to all activities for the sake of female employees. We spread information, we educate, we know how important it is and what are the reasons behind that. We put forward examples, we measure, we set KPIs, we measure not only diversity and gaps, but we include in the annual performance review of managers, we include activities causing that the leaders, and we introduce leaders, motivating them to include women within their teams in order to treat them equally, praise them, and to promote them. So we have some very transparent rules in this respect. So there is a series of systemic solutions, and all this causes that men and women in managerial positions, they change their mindset and they change the way they interact with women and girls. And when it comes to the state and the governmental level, it's very difficult to tell. I think that business is very powerful in creating the social changes. And as you said before, we are a step ahead of the governmental bodies and systemic solutions or legislative solutions. I think that in this concrete situation, it's an adequate activity. Business is powerful. Our small steps, implementation of guidelines we get from the UN and from other agendas. They're very important. We want to be in line with ESG. We want to have a sustainable business, including all groups which are underrepresented in our teams. So business is power. I want to leave you with this. Soon we will need to conclude, but if you want to share something at this point as a conclusion of this discussion. I was supposed to have 4 minutes to speak, so I will take these for 4 minutes. One thing about education and how we educate the AI. The Equal Voice founders, these are members of board of our media company. We have honored fact and so on and so forth, so let's leave the national TV aside. She said, one of the founders, do you know GPT chat? She asked, what is the best toy for a boy, for a little boy? And it was the mobile phone and some car or a scooter. And what about girls? A cookbook, a Barbie doll, and something else. Both children were highly disappointed. The boys say it's highly discriminative and unfair. So AI is not the real world. Just shortly, with regard to education, there is an initiative called Once Upon a Time, and I strongly encourage you to take a glimpse at it. These are newly rewritten fairy tales with respect for relevant social cultural codes for girls and boys. So the main hero of such a fairy tale, if it's a girl, she doesn't need to be rescued by the guy who appears on the very last page of this fairy tale. So the girl knows how to behave, and this fairy tale informs what to do in order to overcome any kind of obstacle. So I strongly encourage you to take a deep dive into this discussion. Thank you very much. It's a very powerful
Bardzo paniom dziękuję.
Thank you
Przejdziemy jeszcze z
for being with us. We will have a presentation by Katarzyna Gaweł-Budkiewicz about equality in media, and my speakers were Paulina Babuchowska, Małgorzata Golakowska, Dorota Kupriatowicz-Legutko, Agnieszka Gutowska, Katarzyna Kaczmarek, Bogumiła Lewik, Urszula Okarma. Thank you very much.
Gender equality in media and science. Katarzyna stays with us, and I would like to invite Dr. Magdalena Rzatkowska, the assistant professor at the Institute of Sociology at Gdańsk University.
Dzień dobry.
Welcome, madam.
Witam serdecznie. Proszę
Good morning.
miejsca, czy jak panie wolą? Wolą stać? Tak? Bardzo proszę. To ja paniom w takim razie oddaję pole do popisu.
Okay, the stage is yours, ladies.
To jeszcze raz. Linia Axel Springer Polska, firma...
Again, Ringer Axel Springer Polska, technological company. In our portfolio we have Onet, Newsweek, Service for Women, etc., and many others. So the media range is quite relevant.
Nie dożyją tego ani nasze córki, ani nasze wnuczki. Tylko dopiero prawnuczki.
W Polsce wyrównanie szans zajmie nam 107 lat.
To equalize
No właśnie, już nawet nie
opportunities will take 132 years. This is my daughter.
Co łączy moją córkę z państwem?
So what brings my daughter together with you, with the protagonists of the movie? Influencers, and none of these people in the room of my daughter would reach the moment when the world experience the equal rights for men and female, and I think it's scaring. It reaches out to the males' hearts as well who have daughters. They become aware. Well, I agree with the fact that without men we will not do anything. Our company supports all 17 goals of UN agenda, but we mainly focus on free independent media, climate. Since 2021 we are a zero-emission company, and equality. That's another pillar, another goal. Looking at our region, in Poland and worldwide, the voice of women in media is heard in 27%. That's as much as we write about women, and women participate in some media coverage. In 73%, word perceived by media is a word described by men. Moving on, because this is not that bad data yet. Forbes Women Polska and Institute of Monitoring Media says that the information programs talking about economy, politics, so important aspects, specifically in current times of financial crisis, this voice is audible by 27%. Do you think that watching these media we get the full perspective, different or a diverse perspective? Can my daughter see any role models in such media? And that's why we have equal voice, because we said we have to start with ourselves, and this is the only right approach. The equal voice in Onet, Forbes, Fact, Newsweek, and so on should scan text, content, and pictures, soon videos as well, and we will get some data, not to hold people liable, responsible. It's just to equalize the opportunities. We want to have the right content, and we need this grant for discussion, which we didn't have so far. As of 2021, we run campaign I'm not waiting 107 years, I will not survive. So, and I want you to remember that together with TVN, UN Nations Global Compact, because we act together a lot, last year we launched a database of female experts. Nothing innovative, it's a simple tool where on the one hand a woman can enter her profile describing in which areas she is an expert in,
and what kind of forms of public speech she's interested in. And on the other hand, this database is open to media houses and other institutions, so that in a situation that we hear there are no female experts, we tell them, go for this database and check. There are so many aspects, industries like media, finance, construction, or we have plenty experts, over 1,000 women represented there. It's a free of charge tool available to everyone. So I want you to remember, Poland is full of smart and competent, skilled women. Pandemic made access to these women even easier, because it's so easy to contact them online. So I really kindly ask you to, for my daughter, do your best so that women's voice can be audible. Let's support the equal voice of men and women in Polish media. Thank you very much. Katarzyna Gaweł-Brudkiewicz, Ringer Axel Springer Polska, and now over to Magdalena Gutkowska. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm a representative of science, so on my own behalf, on behalf of World of Science, I want to go different direction. I would not provide data, but thank you for this data. I'm so happy that quantitative research, our contribution to build social sciences, it is really happening. But let me draw your attention to a micro example. I'm a sociologist. I run qualitative research. I visit people at their homes. I talk to female scientists. Recently, I had the pleasure to research the scholars, the scholarship Women in Science. These women are really great, and we can get more and more information about it. And this is the story of one of them. Please read this story. Many of you probably experienced something similar. It is a very known mechanism, something that happens often in our heads. Something? Yeah, I see you nodding your heads. This is the mechanism that proves that only 33% in research teams are women. The higher you get in science, the higher you get in the positions, in titles. As you can see, there is more and more passion for science, so it's more difficult for us because more and more my male colleagues want to become deans or rectors of the universities. So we see that it's not getting easier for us. This syndrome is quite profitable for some people who want others to believe that we are known, welcome. But Poland is not really much different. It's a syndrome of the CEE. I want to fight against it. I want to prove that we have great tools. We know how to manage. We know how to be on the top. But this is a mechanism, kind of internal mechanism that we cannot influence if you're socialized in such words. It does not refer only to women. Among the students of the university in Gdańsk, we have many young people, skilled people who are the first generation in their families who study. And it makes much difference if you are a granddaughter of the university professor or you're just the representative of the first generation that go to the university. So while presenting our fantastic initiatives and the best business practices, we have to know that other people can hear our voice. This is the voice that you can hear in your voice, even though you get the scholarship by L'Oréal Foundation. But still, the respondents in our service said, we are trembling while getting to the stage. I'm not a role model. I'm not the right person for this position. Somebody soon will discover I am not the right person for this position. So, of course, visibility is very important. important. Knowledge how strong stereotypes can be, how strong they act against us, and how difficult it is to change it. All this knowledge is really needed. And what can we do? Science is often related to just talking, but through our plans for gender equality, strong cooperation with business environment, NGOs, through our path towards Western Europe, we encourage that in the pay plans, diversity plans, inclusion plans, whatever you call it, we, of course, all these phenomena undergo rebranding, but we still have to remember the minority voice is very important. Diversity is profitable, brings profits. We know that the syndrome of the cheater actually is very strong still. Why? Because the lack of identity or lack of feeling of belonging is acting against us. We know that this, well, for that we need to develop training for mentors, for people who don't see these inequalities. Mentors should know about these biases, these prejudices. So we support applications for transparency of awards in science. We want to push women to be on the front line. This is my daily work with my students. I work telling them every day, you're great, you will manage, you have great speech, go for it, do it. I'm representing foundation, so I want to thank you for inviting me here, and I would like to encourage you to encourage great students that you know to apply for the award for science, and this is Laurel UNESCO Award for Women of Science. Majority of the women who have already undergone a program, they represented Poland worldwide. Many of them achieved a lot, and you perfectly know them, you cooperate with them already. They impact the development of business. Thank you very much. Thank you for this supportive and strengthening voice, supporting women and their attitudes. And now Justyna Duszyńska, who is the coordinator of the research group. Sorry, it's not Justyna Duszyńska anymore. There is a different representation.
Dominika
Bagińska-Chyłek from the Łukasiewicz Digital Transformation Research Group. Thank you for this correction. Dominika Bagińska-Chyłek, thank you very much for inviting me to this great event today. And I believe that in the context of the discussion about women in innovation, we can't forget research and innovation and the practical dimension that we see in Poland. I'm not sure if you're aware that since 4 years, based on almost 38 research institutes, we developed we established Łukasiewicz Research Group. The changes in business also refer to science. So research and development is also run in Poland in such a way that includes perspective of women and that leads to technological solutions that respond to current needs and global challenges. Of course, it's quite obvious when it comes to the climate change. This is the most topical issue. But we also try to respond to the needs of women. We want to take their perspective as the recipients of technologies. They are equally important to men. My story in Łukasiewicz is related to the topic of women because I joined the group to develop Łukasiewicz offer in the ESG area, so that technology does not only support entrepreneurs to achieve climate neutrality, to reduce CO2 emissions or to achieve energy efficiency. In our Łukasiewicz group, science should respond to the target, the market needs and the science needs. This is also about aspects related to S, society, and G, governance. When I joined the group in the first month of my work, I got an additional task to prepare gender equity plan. This is the plan that was already mentioned by my colleague from Gdańsk University. This plan, it's an internal document that we could have taken it as a template, but we are research environment, so we had to organize survey, analyze data, financial data, to analyze which positions, what age, how many years of experience, so which positions are taken by men, by women, what is the family situation, and we had to ask them which stereotypes they encountered at workplace. And based on that, we developed gender equity plan. It's one of the tools that is currently used in our company. It's a binding document. It has been binding document since 2021. Every 3 years, this document should be analyzed again, revised, and introduced by new teams. It's only one dimension. It's also very important to stress that gender dimension is an internal part of research for innovation. This is a requirement. It's a standard nowadays to apply for funds under Europe, Horizon Europe. This is the biggest program, R&D program in the history of the European Union. So the the condition to apply for these funds is the criterion of the scientific excellence. And this criterion includes the aspect of the gender equity in research. This aspect, this criterion, is not the only one here. Once we have a list of projects, research projects, that are great, that have been highly evaluated, we have to come up with the ranking of the top projects that will apply for the funds. Still at this age, it is verified what is the percentage of proportion of women in the research team, just to reach this quota of 50%. These are standards which became normal in science. In Łukasiewicz, we made step ahead. As it used to be a standard already, as we acknowledged the need of equality, we went for AI. Looking at the outcomes of the research on artificial intelligence in Poland, we see that only 16% of people working in this area, these are women. And in the European Union, there is no other country that this indicator exceeds 30%. In the US, it reaches 20%. The highest indicator is in Latvia, 29%, then it is followed by Finland, 26%, and break the stereotypes that probably Scandinavian countries are at the top. But we have Italy in the first position. 26% of women work in the area of innovations using artificial intelligence. In Poland, this level does not even reach 13%. That's why in Łukasiewicz we do our best to create the solutions, AI-based solutions, to include in our projects, implementation phase and application stage, the gender-related factor. I think we have heard already today that this is an ongoing change. Things are happening already, and we are happy to see it. Business becomes a leader in certain areas. Business introduces, implements certain novelties, and we, facing the business needs, facing the market needs, we follow that. But the standards are binding no matter in which area we work, where we work. We may work at home, taking care of our kids. This does not matter. But I believe we are in such a position that we already have majority of tools. We need to implement the change, be the change you want to be. And I do hope that we are not going to wait 107 years. And I hope that it will be my pleasure to get back to you to prove that our research, our surveys prove that statistics moved on. And that's what I wish to myself and to all of you. Thank you very much. Dominika Bagińska-Hełek from the Łukasiewicz Research Group. Ladies and gentlemen, this event is coming to an end. Ring the bell for Gender Equality 2023. We would like to wish all these positive changes to all of us. We had great speakers, great guests with us, and now I would like to ask Izabela Olszewska, the head of the board of Warsaw Stock Exchange, Anna Potocka-Domin, head of business and Global Compact Network Poland, and Kamil Wiszkowski, Executive Director of Young Global Compact Network Poland, to summarize the meeting. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, even the best event has to come to an end. Also this one. First and foremost, let me thank to our partner, the UN Global Compact, Anya and Kamil. We can always count on you and on our great cooperation. I think that a lot of great activities ahead of us. Thank you very much, and let me thank to State Street Global Advisors and Anne, who came here to solemnize this event with her presence, and also to bring the fearless girl with her, who assisted us during today's conference. I'd like to thank to all speakers, female speakers, and women who made their presentations. They were very inspiring to me. They showed how much is done in the area of diversity and acting for gender equality. A lot needs to be done yet, but as I've said during my presentation just at the beginning of this event, I think that this great idea of diversity, step by step, is getting filled up with the content. Thank you very much. Not to make this too long, thank you very much, Izabela. Thank you, dear partners. Thank you for the energy that you released today. It strengthens my optimism and belief and faith that the Horizon 2030 of the 2030 agenda is achievable and feasible in terms of gender equality. I'm happy. I can feel your power of women and men who know that equality is something which is absolutely natural and necessary, and we need to reach it. Thank you. We don't want to stay on your way towards lunch. So in our life perspective, take care of everyone who has their wings cut or broken. So support such people. Let's take care of them and empower them. I think that all these panels and debates show that it is absolutely doable. So please engage and support one another, especially women. Take care of women. So this is the takeaway message I'm leaving you with. And now, of course, let's have lunch. Thank you very much. Welcome to the host. And before lunch, please join our host and the organizers on the stage, or all speakers and guests. Let's have a family picture together. So next to the fearless girl, or with the bell, the bell and the girl. So the left hand side. I think that our photographer will manage to
Absolutnie wszystkich, włącznie
arrange
z
it.
Państwa, które tam z tyłu jedzą.
And all of you, we invite you from your lunch break. We want everyone to participate and to be here.
Chodźcie.